Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 this Thursday morning. Thanks for tuning in here and letting us be a part of your morning routine. We love that you tune in for this show and start your day with us. It's a great honor, and we don't take that for granted. Hopefully we live up to what you're looking for. Coming up in 30 minutes, Congressman Andy Harris is, dumbfounded over what his Democrat colleagues in Maryland are willing to fight for, or who they're willing to fight for. So he'll have some things to say about Chris Van Hollen. 8:05 KT McFarland. And then at 8:35, your border czar, Tom Homan. That's all coming up. By the way, I just want to point out, I mentioned Patty Morin, Rachel Morin's mother, who had such a stirring moment yesterday in the White House press briefing. Really important, powerful stuff. She's going to be a guest of Vince Coglianese later today. I think that's it'll stream. I think his podcast streams at 10 o'clock. You can watch that on Rumble, or you can catch it here on the radio, noon to 3. So that's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes.
Good morning, Larry. What is up with your state? Seriously, come on. What is up with their leaders?
Yeah, I really can't pick them, can I? You know, I came from California and I came to Maryland, and it's like, what's going on? Every state I end up in. I've lived in New York. I guess Michigan is the only thing I got going for me. At least they get it right sometimes. Well,
and Michigan, they struggle too, let me tell you.
They're back and forth. But yeah, Maryland is in tough shape right now. As Chris Van Hollen pretends like he's a champion for due process, even though the due process that he appears to be defending doesn't actually exist. Let's just be clear here. He wants there to be a due process where the United States government goes to a foreign country and retrieves a citizen of that foreign country from a prison and bring him back. Now, he may be angry that Trump and the Trump administration, more specifically, enforced American law and deported this man. He may be angry that there was an administrative error that, if had been followed, he probably would have prolonged the deportation by maybe a week or so. That's fine. Stay here at home and take it up with the Trump administration. Rally, make your case. You're a senator, for God's sake. Deliver a speech, But instead he grandstands and he puts out social media videos. He gets humiliated on behalf of his state and himself and his party in El Salvador. And when it all comes down to it, again, he may be grandstanding that this is about due process and the rule of law, but ultimately you cannot take away the fact that he is fighting for an illegal alien who came into this country illegally. There is a mountain of evidence to show that he is a member of the MS-13 gang. There's new reports that he was abusive to his wife. That's from his wife's own testimony. Various law enforcement agencies in Maryland have said, yes, there's credible evidence to say he's a gang member. And now we have the police report that he was pulled over by police officers in Tennessee with 7 people in his car. He was accused of human trafficking at that time. He was on the terror watch list. And this is who Chris Van Hollen is defending. No, not just defending. He's normalizing this behavior by just referring to this man as a Maryland father and one of his constituents.
Well, let me ask
outrageous,
you something.
Mercedes.
Does this Maryland quote-unquote father, does he vote? No.
I'd love to know that.
Because he's not a citizen. Well, let's pray to God.
He's not supposed to vote.
But all I'm saying is that the mere fact is that you are elected to represent the people, right? The people in your district or in your state. And here you have this man who obviously, this MS-13 gang member that can't even vote, can't even legally vote in Maryland. And here's the deal. You do a search of Chris Van Hollen and Rachel Morin to see if he mentioned anything, even like expressing sympathy towards the family. This is the mother of 5 who was viciously killed by an illegal alien in Maryland. Literally the case, they just tried the case this past week. And what does Chris Van Hollen do? No, he doesn't call the mother of Rachel Morin. He doesn't express his condolences. No. He gets on a freaking plane from Dulles to San Salvador to try to basically make a case for this illegal El Salvadorian citizen who's not even a U.S. citizen. The whole thing Larry. The whole thing is just twisted. And it's why you wonder, when you have a Democrat Party that is supporting biological men in women's sports, when you have a Democrat Party who is standing on the side of the Hamas terrorists, and when you have a Democrat Party that is supporting illegal aliens, some of these who are criminals, who are MS-13 gang members, and that is your platform, how can you even survive as a party? It's so anti-American. It's so anti-common
They don't
sense.
deserve to survive. If that's what they're standing for, they don't deserve to survive.
And their popularity
here's
has
the
decreased
best thing
tremendously.
about it.
What?
They're tripling down though, and it's
Tripling down. I agree with you.
What's worse than doing something stupid? A doubling down on stupid. And Chris Van Hollen, he's got company. Guess who joined the fight with him yesterday?
Oh,
Here's cut 25. Your governor, Maryland, Wes Moore.
Your governor.
32 days ago, the Trump administration deported Kilmar, Armando, Abrego, Garcia to the one location that an immigration judge promised not to send him to, El Salvador. A Marylander, a union worker, a husband, a father, was placed in handcuffs in front of his son and forced onto a plane.
Enough.
Bound.
I do love the Spanish. I mean, you're of Hispanic descent, Latina. You're from Cuba.
Yes.
Can we just get a rating on this? Cut 25A. Let's hear that again, please.
Kilmar, Armando, Abrego, Garcia.
What do you give that?
Actually, it was
Is that a
pretty
C
decent.
minus, B plus?
I have to give him credit. He did a good job. No, he did a pretty good job. I'd give him definitely a B plus. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Pretty good.
He referred to him as a Marylander, a union worker. That's the other thing. I wonder if there's union money. He apparently was part of the sheet metal union. Governor Moore, quick question. How did he fill out the I-9 form to get that job with the union? What documentation did he show? Because he doesn't have a green card. He doesn't have a Social Security number. He doesn't have a driver's license because when he got pulled over in Tennessee, he didn't have a driver's license. So you're telling me that he's a union member, but what job does he have? Because you have to fill out an I-9 form, unless he has falsified documents. Did he also participate in identity theft? So here's Wes Moore now demanding that this Marylander, this father who beat his wife apparently, and a union worker, he needs to be brought home. And this is the hill they're dying on, Mercedes.
Yeah, look, and I think it gets to the point that when you have these Democrat leaders, you have, even like a Michael Moore, who's the filmmaker, you keep having these leftist type of, and remember, like Wes Moore, let me tell you, the Democrats really believe that he is going to be the next Democratic presidential nominee. There's no question. The guy has charisma. You have even George Clooney coming out praising Wes Moore, saying this is the guy to watch, and they're going to create him.
You mentioned it's.
Okay, go.
You can't mention a soundbite without me playing it, Mercedes.
Oh,
What do you
do.
know
Please
what we
mention
have
it.
here? Let's hear it. George Clooney last night telling you who the next president will be.
Who do you have your eyes on?
I really, there's one person in particular I think is spectacular. There are a few. I like Andy Bashir. I like.
Oh, you're Kentucky.
I'm a Kentucky guy.
Yeah,
I like him. He's a good guy, and they're smart. And he's won in a red state. He's a Democrat. I like Gretchen. I think is very good. But who I think is levitating above that is Wes Moore. I think he is the guy that has handled this tragedy in Baltimore beautifully. He's two tours of duty in Afghanistan, active duty. He speaks sort of beautifully. He's smart. He ran a hedge fund. He ran the Robin Hood Foundation. He's a proper leader. And Democrats, the thing is, we say Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line. Although I think Republicans have fallen in love a little bit. I like him a lot. I think he could be someone we could all join in behind. We have to find somebody rather soon.
Levitating.
We have to find somebody rather
Spectacular.
soon. I didn't know George Clooney was a political analyst.
Really?
Yeah.
The election isn't until 4 years from now,
James
but we've got to
Carville?
find somebody soon.
Find somebody soon.
Great. Wes Moore is fantastic. I do like that he's noted that he did two tours of duty in Afghanistan, but he left out any mention of a Bronze Star. Huh. They used to talk about his Bronze Star all the time, but then, of course,
I think you
turned
probably
out
forgot
there
the
was no
talking
Bronze
point.
Star.
Oh, there was no brown.
No. They can't mention it anymore, Mercedes, because they got called out on the lie. He never actually got the Bronze Star. But that was enough to get him the governorship. It's 7:16. So Governor Wes Moore, who George Clooney says is levitating above the field of Democrat contenders, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland is now praising Chris Van Hollen for the. Why doesn't Wes Moore go? Wes should go too. He should head down to El Salvador. Everybody's doing it.
He's too busy raising taxes for the people of Maryland.
He's grateful for Chris Van Hollen's leadership in his efforts to ensure Kilmar, I love that they're referring to him by his first name, is safe and will be brought back home to Maryland. What makes Maryland his home? I'm so dumbfounded by this. He came into this country illegally. He was here 7 years and then faced deportation. 2 judges found that he should be deported. Finally, at the last minute, he claimed that if he went back to El Salvador, a rival gang would murder him. So the order to deport him was suspended. It wasn't removed. It was just suspended. He was never granted asylum in this country. And the gang that he claims was going to kill him no longer exists in El Salvador. And while he was here illegally, he is accused by his own wife multiple times of beating her and abusing her. When he was arrested by police officers, he was wearing MS-13 gang paraphernalia, and he was consorting with gang members. And he was pulled over in Tennessee, driving without a license, with 7 people in his car. He was on a terror watch list. Why does this make Maryland his home? And the gang that he belongs to has been deemed a terrorist organization. He's exactly where he belongs.
Larry, you're such a racist. Seriously. He's a Maryland man. He's a Maryland family man. Enough. You're being way too tough. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Criminal, illegal aliens deserve rights too. Got it? Gosh. Those are the Democrat talking points. I'm sorry.
Real Maryland men don't feel like they have any rights. You know, Wes Moore is taking the money from Maryland men to the tune of $1.5 billion. And so he can fund his presidential campaign and celebrate this guy. And the actual Maryland man, the actual Maryland woman is barely getting by and has to deal with crime in their communities because Wes Moore embraces these people.
Larry. Run, Larry, run. Let's go. Come on. What are you doing? It's time.
I am not a politician. Time. I'll tell you somebody who is a politician.
Oh, you know who wasn't a politician? You know who wasn't a politician? Donald Trump. There you go.
Yeah, well, guess what? Yes, he was a politician. He didn't hold elected office, but he was very good at politics. I think you would admit it that all through his business career. One elected official, who could run for governor perhaps, or last time he was on, encouraged Larry Hogan to run, is Congressman Andy Harris. He's a Republican member of Congress, and he joins us coming up at 7:35. Right now, it is 7:21. Mercy, the media always picks up like a narrative and then they just go with it. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. They like the talking point, and so they repeat it. One of them that we've seen over the last month is, I keep hearing from Trump voters that they regret the vote. They regret voting for Trump, right? Have you heard this one that they keep saying? I mean,
not really. I have to be honest. Like, yes, there is a narrative that's a little bit starting, but then they also had that NBC poll showing that the GOP is definitely moving towards MAGA, but I don't know. I haven't really picked up that narrative as much.
Well, we certainly don't know any Trump voters who regret the vote for Donald Trump. And when you see him actually doing the things that he said he was going to do, I mean, I guess they're trying to build this into the tariff narrative, right? Oh, this is not what we voted for. Well, CNN of all places, you mentioned the NBC poll. This is even more important. They specifically asked the question of Trump voters, do you regret your vote? And, well, the results sort of blow apart the narrative. Take a listen.
Let's talk about Trump voters and how they feel. Do they regret their vote?
I mean, this is the big question, right? I hear all these stories, all these articles. All the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. What are we talking about? Trump voters looking back at 2024. We got a new poll out. The poll was conducted this month. What percentage would change their vote to a different candidate? We're talking just 2 2%, just 2%. That's not even a wide spot on the road. And then there's this additional 1% who say they would rather not vote. We're talking overall under 5% might or would have changed their vote, Donald Trump voters back in 2024. And then you ask, okay, the same question to Kamala Harris voters, and it turns out the numbers are rather similar. So if there was a repeat, if folks got to be able to redo their vote that they had back in 2024, would the result be any different? I doubt it would be. I doubt it would be, or it would still be extremely close. The bottom line is, for all this talk of Trump voters regretting their vote, in the numbers, it really just doesn't show up, John.
So in other words, everyone in the media who's been saying that, they've been lying. I know. Shocking.
Can I just say, that Harry Enton, I love his voice. Like, I just love it. It's so, I don't know. It's such a great TV voice.
It's like a character actor from a 1940s gangster movie.
Right. But look, it just shows like that the people are happy with the direction President Trump is taking this country. They love the fact that he's out there, transparent, accessible, basically explaining to the American people what he is doing. And even with the tariffs, which would have been something that would be more unpopular, he's able to at least get that moving along to explain why we need to make these changes in our trade relationships.
Listen, that's obvious with the voters and with the fact that he's doing what he said he was going to do if they elected him. The bigger question to my mind is, why did the media keep saying this over and over and over again? Why did you hear wherever you turned? Why was that even a story when it was based on literally nothing? It's because they're shameless liars. I wrote that book. You should buy it. Andy Harris coming up next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36, and I am your Maryland man, Larry O'Connor, alongside Virginia woman, Mercedes Schlapp. Together we represent O'Connor and Company here in the Mid-Atlantic, D.C., Maryland, Virginia region. Hey, we got it all covered, right?
We do. We do. I do love Virginia, I think, more than Maryland. Nothing against my friends in Maryland. But Virginia is beautiful. And you love going on the countryside with us out of Virginia. Come on.
Virginia's great, but it does not have...
Rappahannock, Madison
It doesn't have
County.
Annapolis. It doesn't have Annapolis. It doesn't have the Naval Academy. And it doesn't have Congressman Andy Harris. Congressman Harris joins us now. He is a Maryland man. Are you shocked, Congressman Harris, at the behavior of your senator, our senator, Chris Van Hollen, dropping everything, refusing to even mention the name of Rachel Morin, let alone express any sympathy for her brutal murder, and instead going to El Salvador to try to rescue an illegal alien who should have never been in Maryland in the first place?
Well, look, good morning. All I have to tell you is, look, keep it up. I mean, the American people understand exactly what's going on here. President Trump is delivering on his promise to make America safe again, to deport illegal immigrants. And he's starting with gang members. I mean, I think most Americans think that's a totally appropriate place to start.
What do you say to people who claim, listen, the only evidence that he's a gang member is from some Prince George's County law enforcement officers who identified him that way, and from a confidential informant to Prince George's County, which, by the way, obviously the way I'm staging the question, let me rephrase it. Is it me, or is Chris Van Hollen basically saying that Prince George's law enforcement officers are liars?
Well, it's not only Prince George's law enforcement officers, it's the immigration judge and the immigration appeals judge who felt that it was credible evidence, that the informant on whose information they depended was credible, it was credible in the past. And look, the guys, this person is, we just found out, stopped in Tennessee, trafficking 8 people in a car from Texas to Maryland. Under suspicion of human trafficking. Chris Wray's FBI basically tells them, no, let him go. He has domestic abuse complaints filed by his wife. I mean, this person belongs in he's an El Salvador citizen. He belongs in El Salvador. He's back where he belongs, and it should just be left that way.
So you've got this Governor Wes Moore, who's yours and Larry's governor, and basically saying that he's grateful for Senator Van Hollen for bringing Abrego Garcia back home to Maryland, basically trying to bring him back home to Maryland. I mean, what's your reaction to Governor Moore and his statement? Because obviously the Democrats are all in supporting the return of this El Salvadorian citizen MS-13 gang member.
That's definitely true. Look, I disagree with the governor. Mr. Garcia is at home right now. He's back in El Salvador. Look, if the governor wants to be tone deaf on what the American people want, look, that's his prerogative. I'm not sure it helps his presidential ambitions to go out on the limb for a human trafficker, a domestic abuser who has been adjudicated as a MS-13 gang member to be brought back into the United States. This is what the last election was all about, and I think Senator Van Hollen and Governor Wes Moore are tone deaf on this.
Marylanders are common sense people. I know that it's got a reputation of being, far to the left, but they're not far to the left. They're instinctively Democrat, but that doesn't mean they're woke leftists. I think appropriately positioned Republicans could challenge both Van Hollen and Moore. Last time you were on, you suggested that Larry Hogan might want to come back and run for a third term against Moore. Have you heard from the governor about that? Is there any movement there?
I haven't. We're still a year and a half out. The bottom line is that, moves like this by Wes Moore, first of all, increasing the budget in Maryland and then calling it a budget cut, increasing taxes by $1.5 billion, and then saying he's for the middle class taxpayer, and now standing up for, again, MS-13 gang members who are human traffickers and domestic abusers to come back to the United States. I mean, look, I think it's right for someone like Larry Hogan to step up and say, let's return to common sense in all of these things.
And if Hogan doesn't run, would you step up?
No, I'm afraid I'm probably too conservative for Maryland. Maryland's full of common sense people, but they're probably a little bit left of center. But I believe Larry Hogan. I will encourage him to step up. I think that we need someone to challenge this orthodoxy coming out of Annapolis that just is on the wrong side of a lot of issues.
Congressman, have you thought about taking a delegation over to El Salvador to go basically look at these facilities in El Salvador? As we know that they've done, Nayib Bukele, who actually spoke at CPAC over a year ago, basically helps to really get some of these prisoners, the ones that you can get, back into society or basically retrained by doing some sort of these kind of apprenticeship programs within their facilities. But have you thought about maybe going down there?
Look, I'm not going to waste taxpayer dollars going to El Salvador. We have enough problems at home. What we should be doing is deporting the illegal immigrants who have come to this country. And again, in many instances, just wreaked havoc on our communities or siphoning away taxpayer dollars, some of them collecting Social Security, some of them on Medicaid in states like California. I mean, look, we just have to end this craziness. And no, I'm not going to spend taxpayer dollars going down there.
You do raise a good issue, though. Do we know who paid for Senator Van Hollen's trip? Was that taxpayer funded?
I will, I've been around Congress long enough to know, I'll bet you it was an official trip, and that means it was taxpayer funded.
Wow. One other question, sir. Obviously, the reconciliation process is moving forward now. Once again, Speaker Johnson was able to get enough votes to accept the Senate budget and move it closer. As the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, what are you looking at right now? What are your concerns? Are you going to be able to deliver the votes for Speaker Johnson? Is Speaker Johnson and the chairman of Ways and Means, Congressman Smith, going to be able to deliver to the Freedom Caucus the kind of cuts and real changes that you're hoping to achieve?
Well, I hope they do. I think we've drawn pretty much a line in the sand that this bill cannot increase the federal deficit. Federal deficit is too large to begin with. We actually had hoped in the beginning that it would actually decrease the federal deficit through the ability to cut some of the mandatory programs. And I shouldn't say cut. In the case of Medicaid, the left says we're cutting Medicaid.
Yeah, it's never a cut.
Nobody's proposing cutting Medicaid. We're like decreasing the increase, but only in Washington or inside a capital beltway is decreasing an increase, slashing it or cutting it. But we have to restore some sanity and eliminate the fraud, waste, and abuse in a program like Medicaid. If we don't do that, there's no way we'll achieve the savings necessary to make this deficit neutral. And then they have to figure out how to get the votes of many of the Freedom Caucus members, because they won't get it if it's not deficit neutral.
Massey's done, and Massey will never vote for it, though, will he? It goes by his own drummer, doesn't he?
Look, he believes that we actually ought to balance the federal budget sooner rather than later. I applaud him for that. I'm not sure it's possible to do it very quickly. We have to get on that glide path. But he represents, what I will call the ultimate fiscal conservative, which says, look, the music is over, musical chairs is ended. We have to solve this now.
Thank you, Andy Harris. I appreciate you joining us. Congressman Andy Harris, 1st District of Maryland.
Thank you.
The sole voice of reason there in the Maryland caucus in the House of Representatives. It is 7:45.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
The overdiagnosis of boys as being ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, has been something that so many of us have been concerned about. Oftentimes, it almost appeared as though boys just being energetic boys would suddenly be drugged to keep them from, behaving like boys. And there's been some new reports now, and even the New York Times is drawing attention to this finally. Here's the Fox report yesterday.
There are growing concerns tonight about whether America's children are being overdiagnosed and overmedicated. The CDC says almost 11.5% of U.S. children have been diagnosed with ADHD. The president's health secretary calls stimulants such as Adderall and Ritalin poison. Correspondent Alexandria Hoff takes a look tonight from the Health and Human Services headquarters.
In the 1930s, acute inattention and restlessness in children was called hyperkinetic disorder. A diagnosis required the behavior to be observed by a clinician. The modern diagnosis of ADD or ADHD largely relies on evaluations where symptoms may or may not be directly observed by a doctor. Since the 90s, numbers have skyrocketed.
ADHD has two different ideas. One is hyperactivity. The other one is inattention. They're not the same thing. And we don't have a biological test for this. So it's something very easy to overdiagnose.
The CDC reports that 3.4 million children ages 3 to 17 with ADHD take a stimulant medication. That's 5% of all U.S. kids. In 1987, it was 0.6%. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has long made his thoughts clear.
There's clearly a major problem with overprescription.
The CDC recommends medication and behavior therapy together for children. But there are a number of studies examining whether environmental changes would serve some children at least as well as stimulants.
Yeah. In fact, I would argue that this overdiagnosis coincides with schools cutting back on recess and activities and encouraging boys to sort of let off steam and spend their energy out on the playground instead of, being cooped up in a school all the time. It's a disaster and it's a tragedy. I've talked to parents who have had to deal with this.
That, and they're on the computer so much, and all that extra overstimulation. It is something, I think, an area that people just don't understand. And how do you want to solve it? Overprescribe them. And you know what? It leads to suicidal thoughts and just really negative tendencies that are when they take these drugs. I mean, it is dangerous.
It is also hard. It's impossible to ignore the correlation between boys who end up doing horrible violent acts, even school shootings, and how many of them had been prescribed or even were on these drugs when those horrible acts took place. That's a correlation that should be looked at too. And for those who bristle at RFK Jr. calling these drugs poisons, well, the definition of a poison is a substance that interferes with the normal body functions. And especially if it's being given to someone unnecessarily, that is poison. That's what it is. I hope they're going to take better care at this. They're going to look at it, and we really do get the research and studies that we deserve. We
and
parents
find alternative solutions as well. I mean, sometimes you do have to prescribe, but not all the time.
It is 7:54. Coming up, KT McFarland on the State of the World, plus your border czar, Tom Homan. Keep it here. It's O'Connor and Company with Larry and Mercy.